something different this week. I am very delighted to welcome a guest who is a friend of mine, and she is the alcohol-free coach. And there's a story behind how that's what she became, because Carol was into coaching anyway. My guest is called Carol Urry, and you can find her on Warrior Mum Coaching, but we'll go into all details of that nature again towards the end. And of course, in the show notes will be anything that you hear referenced as we speak about it, and well, it's all there for easy access. So Carol, hello and welcome.
Thanks, Anne. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure.
Excellent. So Carol, let's start with your story and what inspired you to go alcohol-free?
Like many coaches, it's often lived experience, and that's exactly what it was for me. I could take or leave alcohol for many, many years. In my 20s, I didn't really drink very much. And then the kids came along in my 30s, and I used wine a little bit at the weekends, and socially we used to go out. And then my second child, Nathan, was born, and there was something different about him. I wasn't sure what. And he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autistic spectrum, and ADHD at about the age of 5 or 6. And for many years, I blamed myself for that. I thought I'd done something while I was carrying him. And that's really when I started to use wine. Not every single night, probably 2 or 3 nights a week. I would be hurrying to get the kids to bed, read them the story, then get down to settle on the sofa with a nice big glass of my chosen wine, maybe a bit of chocolate, and just relax. And that's really how my journey started. And then it was
a lot of us are probably somewhere on that slippery slope.
Yeah.
I'm feeling quite virtuous at the moment because it's Lent and I am alcohol-free, but that's not my usual state.
That's brilliant. Well done you. That's good. I'm not giving anything up for Lent at the minute.
Oh, well, it's not a big deal. It's something I do every year. And one of the reasons I do it is just to prove that I can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I noticed something that you said there about using alcohol. And I think that's a red flag, isn't it? It's a warning signal.
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's a difference between needing a glass of wine and just deciding to have a glass of wine. You're either fixated on wine or you're liberated, in my eyes, and part of my coaching is about fixation and liberation. I always use the example where if you're not sure, say you've been invited to a party and the party girl's there and there's a bar, and you go in and decide to go and greet the party girl first and other friends that you know without even thinking about going to the bar. You've not even really decided what you want to drink, or even if you're going to have an alcoholic drink. That's a liberated person. They would then go to the bar and get what they wanted. Whereas a fixated person like me, I didn't personally, but some people will probably have maybe a glass or 2 of wine while they're getting ready for the event. They would turn up, they would go straight to the bar, get their drink, and then greet the birthday girl and circulate. And if you feel that you need that drink, some people need it for confidence, some people need it for a little bit of Dutch courage, or just to wind down maybe. So it is a bit of a slippery slope. So it's just knowing whether or not it's got a hold of you or not. And it definitely had a hold of me for sure.
And something else that I've noticed is in a social situation, if you are the only person not drinking or one of a very few people not drinking, and you don't really know the others and you're not mixing with them, the people around you who are knocking it back are getting stupider and stupider and stupider. It's very hard to relate to them.
You've hit the nail on the head there. You don't see it when you're drinking.
You don't?
No. I mean, we've got a lovely local pub and we know the landlord and landlady very well because I used to frequent it most days. And they lived upstairs in the flat. And Debbie, the landlady, said to me one day, "Carol, were you in the pub last night?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I could tell because you got louder and louder and louder." And I'm like, oh dear. And I'm very easygoing, laid back, placid sort of person. But sometimes I found myself on certain wines getting quite obnoxious, not rude, but quite argumentative, which is just like not me at all. So yeah,
It's
it
not the Carol I
certainly
know,
did.
but it's Dutch courage, isn't it?
Yeah, you wouldn't normally say it if you were sober, but when you've had a few bevies down, you sort of get, yeah, you get a little bit braver, don't you? And that I don't know if it's the real you comes out. We're all very different, and you've got with that, you've got the texting when you're drunk, you don't know who you've texted, you leave your purse behind, you can't remember getting home, you maybe have an argument with your partner, you can't remember what you've done, but yeah, you're saying about stupider and stupider. Obviously being sober now, when I go into the pub and see, because I still go down, my husband still goes down, and I'll see their eyes glaze over. They'll repeat themselves lots of times. They start spitting at you when they're talking to you. They ask you the same questions, and it's really boring, Anne, to be honest. So I generally leave at that point.
Would you say that drinking alone is dangerous?
I think you need to question your drinking alone. Yes, people tend to socialize and drink. If you are alone and you feel you need it to fill something that's happened. So with me, what progressed with me, like you said, it's a slippery slope. My son got his diagnosis. My marriage broke up when he was 7 and my daughter was 13. That's really when my drinking ramped up, and I was drinking alone. Then I'd rented accommodation in the village where the family home was, and we were sharing the children between us at their choice to do that. And yeah, it was a matter of, at the end of the day, when I finished work, I needed that drink. And I think when you drink alone, there's no one to put the brakes on. There's no one to give you a dig in the ribs saying, have you had enough, Carol? Which would have absolutely infuriated me if anybody said that. Them thinking that I actually had a problem. I am not an alcoholic. Nobody ever told me. Alcoholism is not a medical term, actually. It's alcohol use disorder. It's a term we band around, and I googled it a few times. Am I an alcoholic? And I didn't tick all the boxes. So I was what you would call a grey area drinker, which is a massive area, really, from having maybe a glass regularly in the week, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, to having, like me, a bottle of wine an evening or a bottle and a half most evenings. There's that big grey area. So drinking alone,
You still feel that you're in
question
control
it.
and you haven't got a problem. It's denial, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is, what are you using it for? That's the question. So if you're home alone and you want to get a glass of wine out with your meal and share it with your partner, and it's just social and you can just have the one, then that, absolutely fine. But if you're finding that you need another glass of wine and then another glass of wine, and then you go and get another bottle.
Yeah, how many of us actually stop at one?
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it? And if there's a bottle there, you'll be tempted to finish it. And yeah.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And it's interesting when we said one glass, because it says about units. It talks about moderate drinkers and heavy drinkers, and heavy drinkers are actually classed as 3 glasses in one sitting. Now, you would think of a glass, my glasses were big, 250 glasses, and they probably were even bigger than that.
So 3 of those make a whole bottle.
It does. But what the moderation side, or the heavy drinking side, that when they say 3 units, they mean 125. Do you remember the tiny little glasses?
I do.
From the pubs in the 70s and 80s? We didn't have the big glasses.
How horrified were you when you discovered how many units there are in a 250 glass?
Yeah, exactly, because it's 2 units. So if you have 2 glasses, that's 4 units in that night. You are classed as a heavy drinker. So it's interesting. It is, really, when you think about it, and people don't realise, and you get that tolerance. Everybody wants that buzz. You know, you want that, well, people who need that downtime. I certainly wanted that buzz of drinking that first glass of wine, especially if it's on an empty tummy. I mean, I didn't even used to get home from work sometimes. I'd be straight down to the pub. I'd park in the village in the square. They'd pour me a pint of often 5% lager, and then after 2 lagers I'd have a glass of wine, and I'd be on the phone to my hubby saying, can you walk down to the pub and drive me home please? And then I would open a bottle when I got home as well. So lots of people do it.
Indeed they do. And you are the alcohol-free coach, and you can help them to break the habit. So let's hear some more about that, please.
I think accountability is a massive thing. I've got a freebie PDF on my website, which talks about the 3 biggest mistakes mums makes. I work with mums when trying to stop drinking. And I think the important thing is to set a date, because if you just think, oh, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next week. Next week, as we know, never comes. So setting a date, put it on the calendar, and mentally start talking to yourself about that, you know, a couple of weeks beforehand or even a month beforehand, and just start saying to yourself, I used to talk to myself in the mirror all the time and just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to enjoy this glass of wine, but on this day, I'm going to stop, and just repeat that. And then your subconscious sort of gets the memo, if you know what I mean. And it
I do indeed.
Yeah.
This is why I find, for me, it's relatively easy to give up on a regular basis for Lent, because it's definitely a date. And I mean, I'm not religious. I was brought up in the Catholic faith, but I'm not fussed about it from that side anymore. But Lent is a thing, and it's just to me, it's a really good opportunity to give something up. And for me, again, one of the obvious things to give up is wine, or alcohol generally. But wine, do you know, after a couple of days, I don't think about it, except when I'm having something with cheese, because
interesting.
Yeah, it's the horse and carriage thing, you know. You can have one without the other, of course, but it's cheese that makes me think of wine.
Yeah, and that's an easy trigger, Anne, really. You know,
I think everyone's got triggers, haven't they?
Absolutely. And it's just being aware of what triggers you. And for me, it was getting in from work. It was getting in the car. I wouldn't think about drink in the daytime at all. It really wouldn't cross my mind. But as soon as I got in the car to drive home, I used to drive by Sainsbury's, and I would promise myself I wouldn't go to Sainsbury's, and I'd be coming up the road and the car would just automatically swing right. I'd be in the car park. I'd grab a bottle, grab some chocolate, or grab 2 bottles or a couple of bottles of beer and a bottle of wine. And then I'd be like, why? And it's because our subconscious is just so used to the habit of doing it. So that's working with me helps you unpick the subconscious thoughts around it, because the longer we do it, the more our subconscious actually thinks that we need it for survival, and it's like a fear-based thing. And that's why white knuckling it and trying to use willpower only works for a very short time. You need to unpick why you use alcohol, really, what you feel it's benefiting you. And of course, with my sort of scientific side, which is I'm very different to your traditional detox, rehab, AA. My programs are very much scientific based. So we talk about all the chemical reactions that happen in your body. It's like why you wake up at 3-4 a.m. in the morning. There's a scientific reason for that. A lot of women that use that, menopausal women, you know, it really messes with your hormones.
I thought it was dehydration that woke you up at small hours of the morning.
No, it's blood alcohol levels that drop. So what happens is when you're continually topping up during the evening, you've got alcohol is actually a depressant. That's why it's not good to use, you know, if you've got any mental health issues. So what happens is you drink, it releases the depressant and the stimulant. So chemicals are released. You need to be in balance, homeostasis it's called, all the time. So as soon as you drink alcohol, which is a toxin to the body, the liver wants to get rid of it, and it puts everything else aside to get rid of this toxin. So what happens is we release adrenaline, cortisol, and that's a stimulant. So people wake up with like banging chests and heart racing and things, and that's the stimulant is still racing around your body, and your alcohol levels have dropped. And because you've not topped up your alcohol levels, the stimulants are still there, and that's what wakes you up. So you could well be dehydrated. I mean, alcohol is a massive dehydrator. Absolutely is. It's that's why it's interesting actually, Anne, because when people, I don't know how much you drink or how regularly, but women that drink on a regular basis and give up find a massive improvement in the puffiness in their face. And that's purely because when you drink wine, your body is very dehydrated, and it holds on to, your body holds on to any bit of moisture that it gets. So that's why you get the puffiness. Once you start rehydrating regular and the dehydration of wine or alcohol's gone, your body takes a big, like, thank goodness for that. You know, we're getting water in and we're getting lots of hydration, and the puffiness subsides. And that goes for your tummy as well, all around your tummy area.
Oh, interesting. I should have taken some before and after pictures to see if I noticed the difference.
Honestly, I would, your listeners, if they're thinking of taking a break, I would highly recommend taking a selfie if you drink on a regular basis, because you will be amazed. Your eyes are clearer, your hair's better, your nails are better, your skin is so much better after a longer period. I mean, my programs are up to 90 days. And the reason they're 90 days is because it takes time to work on your mindset around alcohol. Anybody can give up for 30 days. Well, most people can. I mean, you're doing 40 with Lent, which is fantastic. But even, you know, for 30 days, you get real improvements. You get your energy levels are up.
Yes,
You know,
because people do dry January, don't they? And then there's another month somewhere down the line in the year.
October.
They have a dry month.
Yeah, that's right. And that's fantastic. I'm a great advocate for that. But unless you're going to change your thinking around drinking and why it is you maybe overuse drinking, all you're going to do is, I mean, I did it myself. You just can't wait for the 1st of November or the 1st of February. And then you feel like you've missed out. So you probably double down on your drinking, which is even worse, really. So, yeah.
Actually, I have seen people go crazy on the day before they're about to.
Yeah.
Then they
Get
must
it all
feel
in
really
there.
terrible on day 1 and 2.
It's so true. It's so true, because it's fear of missing out, what FOMO as we call it. So it's interesting if people feel they have to top up so much before they're going to give up. I mean, I gave up one sober October. I think another time I didn't manage it. I managed about 3 weeks. I mean, my husband has drank the whole way through me giving up, which some people find quite difficult if another partner's drinking in front of them. But it's never really bothered me. We used to just go down the pub as normal. In fact, I'm 2019, October 2019, I still go down the pub and people still ask me, "You still on the wagon, Carol?" And I'm like, "Yep." But yeah, it's I mean, the other side of the bottle life is just, I just explain it that everything's in Technicolor. It's interesting how you see things differently. You know, I was pushing down my emotions because I couldn't deal with, you know, my son having his diagnosis. Then my marriage broke down. I was on my own. I had to get a full-time job. I live in a fantastic community. I was only working very, very part-time, I think about 12 hours, and I had to get a full-time job. And the community I live in practically furnished, well, they furnished my little 3-bedroomed house that I rented. And the community really came together. I used to be a landlady. How funny is that? So
You mean the pub landlady?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so I knew a lot of people in the community, but yeah, I mean, people are drawn to when you're around alcohol all the time, you think seeing these people that are intoxicated and have had enough and get into brawls and all sorts, and not as if our little community pub was like that, but you think it would put you off alcohol, but once it's got a hold of you, it's an addictive substance. It's
Of
very
course.
addictive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you drink it for long enough of it, you will become addicted. Absolutely.
Do you think there are addictive people or addictive personalities and then those who are not?
Yeah, that's interesting actually, Anne, because there was some research done about whether we have an addictive gene or not. There's not a specific, from my understanding, a specific addictive gene, but we can be predisposed to some addiction. But often it's environmental. People that have issues with alcohol, it's not for not everybody, but further down the line, they've often been brought up in an environment where there's been alcohol readily accessible, or they've had parents that have used alcohol for fun and had, been party animals and always had people around the home. And as a young kid, my parents didn't drink at home, only at Christmas. We had a drinks cabinet at Christmas, and the spirits, Dad liked rum and black and Mum had Pernod and orange, and it would come out. But Dad was a big beer drinker. I'm from a mining background, and it was normal for the miners to finish their shift and then go off to the pub and have a few pints to wash down the dust. And Dad was a big drinker. So as I got older, I used to go to the pub, the Working Men's Club. So I was around alcohol. But for some people, it is environmental, or if it's been forbidden maybe, and they've, had strict parents that have not allowed them to, so they've sneaked off down the park and had the bottle of cider and,
yes,
got drunk. And
I know a lot of smokers have started that way.
Yeah.
Off down to the bottom of the garden kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I used to smoke, but I gave that up a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, likewise.
I went to Bosnia actually, because I'm ex-military, and I went to Bosnia, and it was 40p a packet. And there was a lot of people in the sergeant's mess where I was that were smoking. And I did start again for the 6 months that I was out in Bosnia, not massively.
Oh, Carol,
but it took me about 6-8 weeks to pick the habit. Okay, am I okay now?
Yeah, no,
back.
Carry on talking for a bit.
Yeah, so yeah, it did take me, I didn't let on to my husband that I was smoking, but I used to go out in the car and go down to the local park, sit on the bench and have a cigarette. And it did take me, I think, six or so weeks to give up. But yeah, the addiction side is, people blame themselves, and they really do beat themselves up.
But it's wrong, isn't it? Because it's a chemical thing. And the truth is, if it's got you in its grip, you need help to get out of it.
Yeah, and it is, and it is purely because your body now thinks it needs it for survival, and that is the bottom line. So you're fighting against your subconscious, and there's we subconsciously take in a lot. I mean, there's all the advertising. Alcohol is romanticized in the media. It's see
disgraceful.
It in soaps. You see
my
it
mother
everywhere.
My mother was a smoker, but she gave it up about aged around about 50, I think, and she missed it for about 20 years. She used to call herself a deprived smoker as opposed to a reformer, but eventually she even dropped that.
Yeah,
but she always commented that it was so unfair that smokers were the pariahs, and this is going back a long time. It must be going back, God goodness, 35 years or so. Smokers were beginning to become persona non grata.
Yeah.
But drinking, absolutely fine, no problem. Hello, welcome, come in and have a drink.
Yeah.
And yet, actually, I feel that alcohol does you more harm than smoking.
Well, again, it's a carcinogen. So it's actually ethanol, which is what we put in our petrol tank. That's when you get down to the nitty-gritty of alcohol. So your liver has to deal with all that toxin. And what happens is, when alcohol hits your liver and it starts to break it breaks it down into something called acetaldehyde, which is even more toxic than the alcohol itself. And it's acetaldehyde then converts into acetate, which your body eliminates. But often the acetaldehyde hangs around. Depends how quickly you can process alcohol, really. The acetaldehyde can change your DNA, and that's where the cancer can start, because obviously your liver is like a big massive filter, filters everything out, and it goes into your bloodstream, and that's how cancer forms. And of course, I've got on my own podcast, which is coming out soon, I've got my friend Kath, who's an Aussie. She had breast cancer. She's a massive advocate and goes all around Australia and chatting. Has been on the news and the radio, in the papers, about only 3 drinks a week, and we're talking 3 125 ml ones. That's what we're talking about.
It's easier to give up. It is.
Yeah, exactly. You just risk 15% risk, and then there's an added 10% on for every other drink that you have. So especially if you're predisposed and you've got it in the family, I mean, crazy really when you think about it. But it's like, I always think about, it's like playing Russian roulette. It's like having bullets on the table when you have a drink, loading a revolver and putting in a bullet with bowel cancer, a bullet with throat cancer, a bullet with breast cancer, a bullet with another cancer, esophageal cancer, spinning it around, putting it to your head every time you take a drink. That's how I feel. Now, I'm not a wine bashing, alcohol bashing person. I don't have an issue with people who drink, but as long as they know the consequences that could happen. Some people drink all their lives and it never affects them.
Knowledge is power, and it enables you to make the right choice.
Absolutely. And I think choice is important, and that's what I feel my job as a coach, and an accountability coach too. I have ladies that have gone through my program and then come to me for a coaching session once a month, just for accountability. And it's important to have accountability, to tell someone that you're going to take a break, not just like I did, keep it quiet, because every time I said it, my husband would be like, oh yeah, how many times have I heard that, Carol? You're giving up. That would be a Monday morning, because I'd had a heavy weekend and felt rubbish, and then by Wednesday I'd forgotten all about it and I was back to square one again.
I was just down seeing a friend last weekend, and I didn't drink, and she was knocking it back like there was no tomorrow. And normally I would be joining her, because I don't see her very often. And
yeah,
she said, come on, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. No, I told you, it's Lent, I'm not going. She couldn't believe that I didn't join her during those, we had 3 evenings together.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm pleased that I did.
Yeah, you're the one getting up in the morning with a clear head. I've found the people that tend to give you grief for not drinking are the people that have an issue and know deep down they've got an issue themselves, because you are really putting a mirror up to what they should be doing. When you choose not to drink and you get a lot of flack, it's often from the people that know that they really should be cutting back, taking a break or just reducing their intake. So it's quite common for people to give you a hard time. But I always come up with some little phrases that you can say to my ladies that come and work with me. There's lots of phrases that you can give and change the record, so to speak, and have a little
that would be a good note to finish on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those phrases.
Yeah, sure. Well, you could just say, like you're doing Lent, or you're on medication. Depends if you want to tell a little white lie, if you're comfortable or not. I've got to get up early for work in the morning. Alcohol just doesn't suit me. You can say, yeah, you're on a health kick. There's lots of things. And I would also say to your listeners, if you're thinking about giving up or taking a break and you're going out for a social evening, get in the mirror, self-talk, tell yourself that you're taking a break, come up with the conversations and say, oh, I'm not drinking tonight because, and actually practice it and have a couple of days of practicing that in your head. And also do a little note on your mobile, on your phone. So get a video out and video yourself the reason why you are taking a break from drinking. And if you feel under real pressure, go to the ladies and play it, or pop outside and have a look at it, and get to the venue first and get yourself a drink. I used to get like a G&T glass with just tonic water in it and a slice of lemon with a straw. Nobody knew I wasn't drinking gin and tonic. They just thought I was drinking. So, and there's lots of alternatives out there, Anne, isn't there? So
there's plenty now. And
yeah.
some of the alcohol-free beers and lagers and so forth, they taste as good as the real thing.
Yeah. No,
I think the original attempts were, well,
yeah,
indescribably
pretty awful, some of them.
I haven't found a nice wine yet.
No, wine, they're working on wine. There is a lady that's got a wine called Naughty. She's from a champagne producing family, and it's called Noughty, Naughty. It's really for special occasions. It's not no, that one is about 10. No, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. That one's about £10 actually. There's another one. It's called Wild something, but that's in a box, really fancy, about £30, and that's really for special occasions. I can't remember, my friend drinks it, but yeah, the wine definitely needs some work, but they are getting there. The Guinness, if you like Guinness, is absolutely superb, really tasty.
Okay, I could try that this weekend.
You could. I mean, for some people it triggers them, and some people it's not an alternative, and I completely get that. They don't want to even, look at as if they're having a drink, because it could be a big trigger. But if you're, I mean, I used to get my fancy glass out and I used to pour myself some Schlur or something, or Prosecco is really nice in Sainsbury's. That's an alternative to Prosecco, and that's really lovely. So there are alternatives out there.
Wonderful. Okay, well, people, Carol Urry is the alcohol-free coach. You can contact her on Facebook, Instagram. What are your handles?
I'm Warrior Mum Coaching on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm Carol Urry, which is URRY, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And I do TikTok now and again.
Oh, good for you.
I'm experimenting.
Right, Warrior Mum Coaching, all one word, warriormumcoaching.com. Thank you, Carol. It's been a great chat.
Oh, it's been lovely. Thank you, Anne. Take care.